Hello everyone. We're going to do a tutorial today on how to apply bare metal foil. This is something I've been asked about several times on how I do it, and I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use to do it. It comes out pretty well for the most part. I don't use it on anything big. I don't use it on fuel tanks or anything like that because for me personally, it still has a texture to it, so it does not simulate metal the way I want it to. I use Alclad for those purposes. But like around your cab doors, small parts. Actually, today we're going to do the center of this 378 Peterbilt hood, which is a pretty nice little area to do with bare metal foil. It looks decent. Um, so we're going to get right into this. What I'm working with here is just your basic chrome bare metal foil. This is not the new and improved stuff. It's just the old regular chrome. We have a 378 hood. The materials we're going to be using, other than the bare metal foil, is a Q-tip, a toothpick, a piece of, this is actually basswood strip. You can get this in just about any shape, whatever's more comfortable or will work the best for you. I particularly like this wider piece. It works pretty well, and I'll show you how I use that. And I have my sanding stick, and the key to good bare metal foil work is to always keep a number 11 blade in your hobby knife, and make sure when you start with your bare metal foil job that this is a new blade. Once I make, I would say, 3 to 4 cuts on average, I will change this blade and put another new blade in. That is one of the keys to doing clean bare metal foil work, is to make sure that this blade is sharp at all times. And remember, this stuff is metal. So you're using this number 11 blade to cut through it. Even though it's thin, it's still metal, and it dulls this blade out pretty quickly. So to get started here, the Q-tip's going to come for a later part of the process. What I do with the toothpick is this is just a standard old toothpick. It's kind of pointy on the end. So what I do with these is I'll take my sanding stick, and I want to knock off actually the point that's on this toothpick. I kind of knock it down and make the toothpick a little round instead of being pointed. And when I get it sanded here, I'll show you, if I can get it up close on the camera, of what I've done. But this kind of dulls the toothpick out just a little bit and still creates a nice smooth surface so it doesn't rip your bare metal foil. Let's see if we can get a close-up here. This camera's not trying to focus on anything today. But you can basically see that I rolled the end of that toothpick compared to the other end, which is pretty sharp. You don't have to get it real dull, but just kind of dull it off a little bit. You don't want this pointy end because it will rip the bare metal foil. Now this piece of basswood I have, this is my main tool that I use for bare metal foil work. I've sharpened this into a point there that you can see. And the next thing I do is take my sanding stick and just very lightly hit both sides of the V. You want to hit the top and the bottom. And all you're doing there is just smoothing the sharp edges off of this so that it won't rip into your bare metal foil. This is what we're going to use to actually smooth the bare metal foil down. This works very well. It's actually one of the best tools that I've come up with to use for bare metal foil work. And try to keep this point here. You want to keep this point rounded, but you want it to be pretty sharp going this direction. But keep it rounded from front to back here, because you'll need this to get down into, like on this hood here, you need it to get right down here to push this down along the edge of that seam. And this works real good for that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut a piece of bare metal foil out. And I usually cut a substantial amount bigger than what I need. It gives you room for the material to flex around without getting a bunch of wrinkles in it. And if it does get a wrinkle in it, it gives you something to grab onto to be able to lift it back up to try to smooth the wrinkles out. So we have a strip. Now we're going to be covering this center raised portion of the 378 hood, and I've made the strip about that wide, which is, you know, a pretty good amount wider than that. To get this stuff started, I take my number 11 blade and just lightly roll the edge of the bare metal foil back. Some people do this with tweezers. I've tried that. I don't really have a lot of luck with it. If that works, you know, better for you, try it. I mean, this is kind of an individual thing here. This is not really a rule. But I fold it back with the hobby knife just enough so I can get my fingers on it. And a lot of times when you've got a wider strip, you got to watch when you pull this off the backing paper, because it will roll back up on you and stick to itself. At that point, you just kind of throw it to the side and get a new piece and start over. Now, another thing I want to touch on here before we put this on the hood is normally this hood would be painted with my final paint and clear. And I also do my initial buffing work before I put bare metal foil on. Some people will tell you that it will not stick when you do that. I have several trucks that has bare metal foil in certain areas on them, and one of them is probably about 5 years old now, and there's not one piece of bare metal foil that's come off of it. So I'm not sure what these people are doing, but you want this surface as smooth as you can get it. And if you have any texture in your paint in this area, it will show up through the bare metal foil. So we're going to go ahead and apply this now. Pretty much all I do is just start at the front or the back, whatever's more comfortable for you, of the hood. And I just stick that down right there. And I want to very lightly take my finger and just draw this back across the hood. You don't want to push this down real hard right now, because you want to check and make sure that this is fairly straight. And of course I didn't get it quite straight enough that time. So I'm going to lift it back up and I'm going to pull it over to this side a little bit. Okay, that should do it there. Yeah, that looks a whole lot better. Okay, now we're going to take I call this thing a little widget. I guess you could call it a piece of wood, but I call it a widget. What I do with this is you want to start at your most raised surface that you have, which would be the center bead on this hood, and rub this back and forth across it. And the neat thing about this basswood or balsa wood is it actually conforms a little bit to your part that you're working on. And let me hold this up here, and you can see how much that bare metal foil has pressed down around that center groove, or that center raised portion, just by rubbing this on top of it. So the next step that I do after that is I want to come in about midway from this point to this point. I want to come in about to the center, and I want to rub the side of it to the front, and then I want to do the same thing to the rear, and I want to push that down real good. Now there is another step right over here in this area. You don't want to push that down yet. You want to work from your tallest point and work down to your lowest point on your item to make sure that this stuff conforms and stretches the way that you want it to, and that way you don't get bubbles in it or wrinkles, and because that's bad. That's not going to work for you if you're trying to simulate metal and you have a wrinkle in it, unless you've got a dented up truck. So there we have both sides of that smoothed down. The next thing you want to do is I'm going to lay this in here just like this, and I want to smooth this area right before it drops off onto the hood itself. And I'll get this smoothed down here and I'll show you where we're at. I'll do it up close here on the camera. Okay. Now you can see where I smoothed that down compared to this side here is a little bit, you can tell how it's a little bit smoother than this side here. I haven't pushed this all the way down yet. Same thing, you want to work that until you get it all the way back and then turn it around and pretty much do the same thing on the other side. You just want to work that front to back just like that and make sure that that lays down nice and smooth with no wrinkles and no bubbles or anything like that in it. And then you can proceed to finishing that area off. And that would be your final step that touches the hood itself. Got that side down. Same thing on this side here. And I'm just working this, you know, pretty lightly, but with a little bit of pressure. You need to get a little bit of pressure on it so that it activates the adhesive and makes it stick down well. Try not to smooth a lot of your excess that you know you're going to get cut off. Try not to smooth that down or put a lot of pressure on it because it just makes it harder to get back off the surface. Okay, so we got up to that point there. We've got everything smoothed down pretty good. The next thing that I do is I will come in here and take the excess that's hanging over most of that off. And I'll do that on the front and the back. I'll get that out of the way. It makes the next step a little easier. Okay, now it comes the tricky part to doing bare metal foil. This is a matter of having a steady hand and good hand-to-eye coordination because you want to drop your knife blade right down in that valley between your raised portion and your flat part of your hood, and you want to lightly drag that knife back. And the same thing here, you need to drop the knife right back into where your cut is and then finish this cut off to the front. Same thing on this side. You want to get right in that transition point and just lightly pull your knife towards you and turn it around, go right back into your cut again and finish it off to this side. Now we're going to take and pull off the excess that we have. And same thing with taking it off the backing paper. I just pull it up there with the knife and just basically pull that off. Now this piece here that I just took off, you could actually set this over to the side if you don't get any dust or anything on it, and you could reuse that if you wanted to for a smaller part. I do that sometimes when I'm working on like around the cab doors and stuff. I'll save these scrap pieces and I'm able to do another section without having to cut a new piece. Okay, so we've got that pretty good. It's not as close as I want it to be. So what I do next is I'll come in and pretty much smooth this out one more time. Get this tucked down real nice. Get it tucked down real nice right here in this corner. And same thing on the other side. And our rounded toothpick we made, what I do with this is I'll come in and I will pull this down my raised edges to make sure that this bare metal foil stays tucked real nice and tight and you don't have any air under this stuff. That's all there is to it there. This one here, I see a little bit of waviness that I got in the cut. So what I do with that is I just lightly come back in and trim off just that little bit of excess that's sticking out. And I'll take my knife blade and just very easily get underneath of it here. This can be a little tricky, especially with a painted model, trying to get under this. Sometimes you have to go back and rebuff a little bit on your paint because you may put a couple scuffs in your clear or whatever. And this one actually stuck very well. Even that little piece is stuck real good. We have almost got it here. Yeah, we're looking pretty good there. It's just a little tiny slither that was on the side of that, and I didn't like it. And the final step that I do is I will take my Q-tip, and after you've rubbed that down with your with that basswood, this Q-tip will help get some of the burnish marks out of it. I've heard some people use Q-tips to actually apply bare metal foil. I do not recommend it. It doesn't have enough firmness to it to really do it properly. You can do it if you want to, but the results won't be as good. So basically all I do with that is just use it to smooth that out. And the next step that I do is to take a little bit of this product here, which is called Novus number 2. It's a light scratch remover. I use this buffing all my models out, and actually use it on clear parts. And I'll take a little bit of that, and I'll put on right where we did our bare metal foil work, and I'll buff that down. Just work it around there a little bit. Just like that. And come back in, and we're going to wipe this off and actually polish it down a little bit. And that's looking pretty good. I could get the edges a little bit cleaner, but this will at least give you an idea on how this is done. I'll hold it up here and let you see it. That is the new chrome band that is down the hood of this Peterbilt. And you can see all the raised detail in it. Now, if you look real close at this, you will see that even though they say that this simulates real metal, it does have a little bit of a texture to it. For me personally, this would be about as wide of an area as I would do with bare metal foil for my builds. You can see as I flick it right there in the light, even with that pressed down with a piece of basswood, it still has a roughness to it. Now that's on the kit plastic, which is extremely smooth. That's one of the things that I say, you know, it depends on how picky you are on what you want the outcome to be. But that, you know, you can make your decision on that. I mean, if you were to do this and you were real happy with it, then that's all that matters. I'm just doing the tutorial to hopefully show you some tricks to, you know, applying this and make it work a little easier for you. So, but other than that, that's about all there is to applying bare metal foil. I may do a video later on some curved areas or compound areas, which gets a little bit more in depth, but basically the same procedure, but we'll touch on that at a later date. So, as usual, if you have any questions or concerns on this video, just shoot me a PM through the forum, and I'll be more than glad to answer your questions. And we'll let you go on this one, and stay tuned for some that I have in the upcoming near future here. So we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.